blossoming. They're everywhere. We know that drones can do lots of good things. We also know that drones could create really dangerous potential in terms of safety and in terms of privacy. And the recent reports of near collisions of drones by our New York airports and a few up in Buffalo as well show the potential of danger. So I've been urging the FAA, that's a different agency, I have been urging the FAA, the Federal Aeronautics Agency, Aviation Agency, get all the FAA. I have been urging the Federal Aviation Agency to come out with rules on drones. They've taken too long, but the good news is that finally they have announced rules and regulations this morning. And I was briefed on them last night by the Deputy Administrator, and here are some of the points I want to make about those rules. First, the FAA is off to a good first start. We need regulation of drones. We don't need to eliminate them. They do lots of good things. But we've got to be careful when it comes to safety and to privacy. And these rules do some things very well, particularly in regard to air safety. They also leave lots of unanswered questions, which I'll get to in a minute. Let me first talk about the good side. They're very strong on provisions. They have strong provisions to prevent collision of drones with aircraft. And these relate to commercial drones as well as hobby drones. First, none of them can fly above 500 feet, period. Second, they must remain 4 miles away from any major airport. And beyond the 4 mile perimeter, none of these planes are flying above 500 feet. And so that is a very good safety provision. Third, the drones, commercial and hobby, can only be used in daylight. So the dangers of them not being seen or crashing into a plane greatly decrease. Those are good things. And finally, a good thing, they recognize the need for hobbyists, and provided the hobbyists don't fly their drones near airplanes or violate other rules, the hobbyists can continue. Many drone hobbyists were worried that they might just be put out of business. There was legislation in New York City Council to do that. I think that this proposal will make sure that that doesn't happen. So what are the big questions? There are three big questions. First is privacy. The President announced this morning they will put together a working group to deal with privacy, but there's nothing in these regulations about privacy. We all shudder to think that someone could send a drone to our living room or even our bedroom window and it could peer in and take a picture. We need strong regulations on privacy, and I will be urging the Presidential Task Force to make sure that those privacy regulations are complied with. Second, for commercial drones, they say that they must be in the line of sight of the operator.
Don't fall for it. Watch the gap. You're getting on and off your train.
To say that the drone must be in the line of sight of the operator greatly limits what commercial drones can do. This has nothing to do with, in my opinion, safety or privacy. For instance, you want to patrol your farm. You have a huge, big cattle farm, and you want a drone to see if any of the fence is broken. That's not going to be in the line of sight. If Amazon eventually wants to deliver packages by drones, and that's a big question, obviously the drone can't be in the line of sight of the operator. So I've asked the administrator what is going on here. He said we're starting off very cautiously, but we may have to move after discussing with industry and others to expand that. And third, and this one I find troubling, and bear with me, they don't require any geofencing. How do you enforce the fact that drones can't fly above 500 feet, that drones can't go within 4 miles of an airport, that drones have to fly at night? Mm-hmm. Well, there's a technique where you can build such limitations into the drone itself, called geofencing. The drone just won't fly 4 miles from an airport or over the White House or above 500 feet. And some of the leading manufacturers have said that they are willing to put that in their drone. I have asked the FAA why they didn't do that. They say it's something they're considering. It's something that I will ask them to very carefully examine. So overall, we're a lot better today with these new proposed regulations than we were yesterday, particularly in regard to airline safety, where they've done a good job. But we have lots of other unanswered questions, and I will continue to pursue this, as I'm sure Senator Blumenthal and many of my colleagues will. Let me call on Senator Blumenthal. Let me call on Senator Blumenthal. A few words on this.
Thanks to Senator Schumer for again leading this effort. My staff was called last night as well by the FAA to provide a overall briefing on some of the details of the announcement made today. And Senator Schumer is absolutely right. This plan is a good first draft. It's a good working draft, moving air safety in the right direction on drones. But it deals predominantly with safety, which is what the FAA is supposed to do. The issues of security and commercialization of drones, what limits will be placed on them to preserve privacy, which has to be a predominant goal here, will be for the President and the Congress to determine. And it's our job, we must determine how to protect the privacy of Americans in the face of this new and potentially very invasive and intrusive technology. So there are lots of positives, as Senator Schumer points out, for agriculture, in fact, for rail safety, because these drones can be used to inspect rails in remote parts of the country or locations that may not be easily accessible. So there's a direct relation to what we're doing today. But there needs to be a lot more work, and this step is a good first step in the right direction, a good working first draft, and the FAA should be and will be receptive to contributions from legislators and others.
I've had 2 or 3 Sunday press conferences urging the FAA to put out regulations, and so I'm glad they did, and we'll keep at it. Questions on drones? Yes, sir. That's a great question. The enforcement question, the FAA enforces regulations now because they monitor the airspace. But with so many drones out there, it's much harder. That's why I think neither local law enforcement nor even the FAA itself can probably do it. And putting in this geo-fencing is probably, in my judgment, initially the right way to go, which just doesn't allow the drones to fly where they are not supposed to.
So the enforcement can be against the manufacturers, not just against the
Right. Okay?
Senator, on a different topic.
Well, let's go to this topic first, finish this topic. Any more on this one? Other topics?
In terms of the $20 million that the city needs to be reimbursed for in full, where do we stand on that?
Good question. We've had some very good conversations with Secretary Burwell, who is in charge of this as head of HHS. They're working very positively to try to help us, and I think they're going to have some announcements in the next few weeks.
Do we have any sense of how much they have paid the city already to fence?
I will get you all that information. Okay? But we're hopeful that I'm very hopeful, I'm optimistic the regulations will be very helpful to New York.
I'm optimistic.
He's sunny disposition. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Great. Good.